we're live. You see, just like that. And people start coming in, and I turn that down. Hello. Welcome, everyone. It's lovely to see you. We are just getting started here. It is indeed the very same Anne Larkham. We were just talking about you, Anne, but you're just going to have to find out later what that was all about.
Hi, Linda.
Hello, everyone. Linda, Jennifer, and of course, Erin. Lovely to see you all. I'm Barbara Tien, and delighted to have you all joining us today for this. And my cat Zarabeth is delighted as well. I don't know if you can see her, but she's stretching out to grab my pen. Here we are at Projectkin's weekly live program where we do previews of what's coming on the week ahead. And Kathy Stone, it's Kathy's Corner week. And Kathy, you have something special planned for us.
Coming up this week? Well, first, I wanted to tell everyone if I look like my eyes are barely open, it's because they are. I have been,
or aren't, as
the case may be. I have been on a virtual event since Friday at 8:00 in the morning. And I've attended, I think I've attended 14 breakouts and 2 evening sessions all about digital scrapbooking with the program that I know and love. So I think I admitted that in someone else's live a couple weeks ago, that my means of telling stories is by scrapbooking. So this was my weekend. It used to be a weekend away. Now it's a weekend away into my office to do that. But if I look a little tired, it's because I am. But I'm having fun, so that's a good thing. But we'll talk more. Go ahead.
There's an important Projectkin message in all of that. Just as I, posted earlier this week in a response to a post from Ted Anthony about storytelling and music. We talk about storytelling in quilts, storytelling in scrapbooks. They're all various forms of visual storytelling. And you have something special planned this week. Tell us.
I do. We've talked a lot over the last few. We started with our postcard series, but we've had a lot of chats about what do I do with these kind of documents and this stuff and the physical stuff we've been talking about, like what to do about it. Sure. Now, Barbara and I have been talking for half an hour. Now we're both coughing. It's the allergy season. But I'm very excited because if all goes to plan, I have a special guest joining me on Thursday for Kathy's Corner, who's Kate Jackas, who is an archivist. She's a certified photo manager, photo curator, and also has a lot of background training in archiving and preservation with museums and things. So I'm thinking, I've told Kate she could tell us a little bit. I started off wanting to talk about provenance or documenting. When we document the things, and we talked a bit about that last time, when we're documenting stuff that we want to be able to keep it for a record of where things came from, and even who they might be going to after, and so I thought, well, let me get Kate to come and tell us all about that, because she is an expert in that field. And so I've expanded a bit because we do have a lot of questions about how to preserve things, and we have Kate there to answer questions. So I've asked her to talk a little bit about provenance and then just to answer some questions that you have. So if you can't join us live on Thursday, send me a message, send Barbara a message, post it in the announcement of the program, post your questions there, and we'll try and get answers for you from Kate while we have the opportunity. So I'm very excited about that.
She has a relationship with archival methods as well, right?
She did. She was working part-time with them for a while, too. I'm not sure we got to catch up. Haven't talked to her for ages, but she was indeed. So she's very familiar with archival methods projects and worked on various, she's given many, many presentations, which I've attended at conferences on archival. I distinctly remember one where we were shown visually how to pack clothing for preservation, like dresses and clothing and what to use. So I think if you've got things you don't know how to pack up, she's going to be the one to tell us all about it.
Yeah. And welcome, Lori, and Dr. Mary Marshall, Kyla. It's lovely to see you all. And Jennifer Halsey chimes in from a lunch break. Good thing that
Yeah.
timing worked out.
Yeah.
At the Virginia Museum of History and Culture in Richmond. That's fun.
Oh,
That's fun.
cool.
Yeah. Forgive me. How would I know that we would both break into coughing at the same time?
Well, I'll keep talking then. I'll talk about May because I'm really excited about May too, because in May, we're going to do a session with Lori Olson White, and I are going to do a session right here on Kathy's Corner. And we're going to talk about, it's a sort of an extension from Lori's Century Safe talk that she did last week. And we're going to talk about how to preserve the things that she's putting in the safe, answer the questions about those specific items. And also, we're going to talk about the importance of preserving our stories now. Yep, I'm excited too, Lori. And I've heard that Barbara might be only semi-available, so it'll be just really fun. So I was saying about the cats. No, the mice.
Well, this time it's not my cats that are tying me up, and something's happening in the kitchen, so she's left.
Yes.
But this time at the end of May, that very same Thursday of Kathy's Corner, I am going to be at the NGS conference, the national annual conference for the U.S. National Genealogical Society conference, which is exciting for me, and I have to think just about any American, because it is held at the Fort Wayne, in the city of Fort Wayne, Indiana, which of course we all know is the home of the Allen County Public Library. And oh yeah, they have a conference center too. And as it happens, I was just tapping around in my own family for something else I'm working on and discovered a whole lot of cemeteries, one of which is on the tour of where my ancestors are buried, which is kind of cool. And it wasn't even the side of the family that I was expecting. Just goes to show.
Yeah.
And, circling back, if you were with us last week, or we had it recorded, of course, Lori Olson White, yes, that same Lori Olson White who is chiming in here in the chat now, it did a fantastic special program for Projectkin about her incredible time capsule project. You know, what is a time capsule but family history storytelling to a very specific audience at a very specific, potentially a very specific time? In this case, she is building on the story from what she's learned of the Century Safe, Annie Diem's incredible Century Safe, and the brilliance of that idea, especially, 150 years ago.
And if you didn't see that session, go watch it as soon as we hang up, because it was incredible. Incredible.
As always, these things are available at projectkin.org.
Yes.
In this case, projectkin.org/specials or the homepage. And I will include a link to it with the recording.
With this, because it was fantastic. And
That's
so,
right. That's right.
And I think part of what Lori and I want to talk about in May is it's something that, and I told her it's a comment she made at something during Roots Tech, either live, a ride along. I don't know. I don't remember, but it struck me so much I wrote it down. And that said that one thing that occurred to her then was, we get very focused on our ancestors and our family history, and going back, we're back looking at our 8th and 9th and 10th and 30th cousins, and we're neglecting to document our own history. And that really struck me as a really good point, given everything that's going on. And what a gift to not our ancestors, to our descendants, if your ancestor actually documented some stories, because what a treat it is when you find a story and you actually have more than a sentence that you have to remember by. So, and I think that's something we'll talk about. And I'd started jotting a list down of just all the stuff that's happened in the last even 10 years. And I don't know anybody who's still on Facebook. I'm still there for a little while, but all those memories are coming out 6 years ago. Well, guess what was happening 6 years ago in April? We were under lockdown here in COVID. And I'm like, oh, we had got food delivered. And I have popped up a picture of food, because what else do you put on Facebook? But pictures of food. And it was like, oh, this was a great delivery from a local place that he
No
switched
longer.
to doing delivery. No, he's still going strong. He's actually opened a restaurant in addition to his stand in a food market. But it was a blessing to
Yeah.
have Jeff. Jeff, small business. Jeff, the owner, was delivering the food, but he would advertise what his menu was for the weekend, and you could make your order. And it
Yeah.
reminded me, those are the kind of things that need to be written down, because
Yeah.
COVID triggered probably this whole DoorDash, skip the dishes, a whole industry probably got
Everywhere around the
around
world.
the world kicked off probably from a
Right.
pandemic. And
And
so I
how
thought,
many of us, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and how many of us wrote anything down from what that was
Yeah,
like, what that experience was like?
yeah,
It is, reflecting, what if we had, as we faced that pandemic, what if we had documentation from our ancestors who lived through the Spanish flu? What was that like? What did you do? We don't know what the things are
yeah.
that are ahead. There are certain things we know about, like climate change, and
Hmm.
how, what it was like when that was still snow capped year round,
Yeah.
or, things that we did. When I was a kid, we lived in Latin America, and it was a very unusual life. Have I written those stories down? Not really. They were sort of my shock the kids kind of stories.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good point, because in the term of climate change, so I don't live that close to it. It's not a close drive. It's probably about a 4-hour drive, but there's a place called the Columbia Ice Fields, which is halfway between Banff and Jasper in the national park. And the Columbian Ice Fields, everybody visited. I visited as a kid, and I was just working on my clients' pictures of a trip they took to there in the 50s. And now the Columbia Ice Field, then you could walk off the road and get on the glacier and just walk on the glacier. Now you have to take a bus for miles almost to actually get up to walk on the glacier, because the glacier is receding. And it's
Mhm.
quite remarkable when you look back on those old pictures
Yeah.
at how much it has. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat too, and I think it's Marcy wrote, she did write a few paragraphs about the experience in COVID lockdowns. And I'm like, and I've been saving, because again, I disclosed at the beginning, I'm a scrapbooker. So, well, yeah, the moon mission, actually,
The
on my
moon
big
mission.
scrapbooking work weekend, I did a 2-page spread, we call them. It's 2 pages that are on the same topic in a scrapbook. Mine
That's
digital. I'm
digital.
not doing more paper, on Artemis, because we've just saw something again remarkable over these last couple of weeks. So it's
Mhm.
um oh yeah, Lisa remembers the Columbia ice fields. Yeah. It's so it's like Kyla says, it's the moon mission. And so for me,
Yeah.
my way, I've decided, I thought about this is, am I going to write great big long stories and books and things? And I'm like, probably not. I think my method is good, because I've been working on, I'm almost, what year the Columbia Glacier, that, it was back in the 50s, I think, that these pictures are from. They're about 1957, I think.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I've got some more I'll have to find that are from more recently, not that much more recently. They'd be sometime in the 2000s, when we took my kids there and we're out there, and
Mhm.
for contrast. But it's just it's remarkable. But what I realized as I'm going through, and I'm a little behind. I always referred to myself, when I taught scrapbooking and creative things, that um, I'm the person who's not done. If you're feeling bad because you're way behind and you're like, "Oh my gosh, my kids are 6 and I haven't started their baby book yet." I'm like, "Yeah, mine are 30 and I'm working on it." So, but as I go back through the photos, they're triggering the memories I write the stories. The stories are, a paragraph or two long, but they go with each event. And so right now I had a big one for Easter, but now I'm on some, just the day-to-day stuff. And there's
Mhm.
just, one or two pictures, and there's one, and my son is on the phone. And so 10 to 1, he was talking to his grandmother, my mom, who lived up in Edmonton at the time. And also in the middle of talking to the second picture, he's holding the cordless phone up, get my hand in the screen, and a Beanie Baby in the other hand, letting her talk to the Beanie Baby.
Oh,
And so that triggered a bunch of memories for me because I'd forgotten about that. But he did that every time he talked to Grandma. She usually had to talk to at least one, if not more than one, Beanie Baby. And it's just, you remember all those little things that my husband had a little tradition with the boys that whenever he's got a weekend, because when you work shift work, your weekends are, weekend is not really in your vocabulary.
what means
Whenever he had
weekend?
days
Yeah.
off, the first morning of his days off, they'd all sit on little stools in the kitchen with a glass of root beer. My husband has never drank, but they'd all have a glass of root beer, and they'd all toast à ton santé. They to your health and so I had pictures of one of those, and then you can add that story, which I may not even have remembered, but I can add the story of how that was a little tradition they had, that they did it for years with that. So it's Lori just said the Beanie Baby's going in the century safe. Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
But
found
that's
Furby in our
as
garage.
Anne says, we're never done. But
We are
that's what I'm
never done.
finding I'm enjoying now that I've got a little bit of time, or that I forced myself to go and scrapbook for 3 days straight,
Yeah.
that I'm remembering little stories. And
Well, Kathy, one of the things that was very clear from your first encounters and our first conversations back in the day was this fluidness with which you move in and out of different media. And the whole practice of photo scanning as a business, which is what we were talking about back then, is very much about the taking of what I like to call images stored on paper, prints,
yeah.
and scanning them till you have them images stored on pixels. But as we've talked about since day one on Projectkin and Kathy's Corner, is you're constantly fluidly moving back and forth of everything from artifacts like Beanie Babies, and then the pictures of those people interacting with these Beanie Babies, to technology like a cordless phone,
Yes.
technology captured in those photographs. I mean, I have a photograph of my grandfather, who was an engineer, worked for General Electric in that sort of golden age for General Electric. And here he is sitting in front of his ham radio, big old station. And of course, it has the name of his handle, or what do they call those? License, whatever.
Yeah.
And out front, he had a giant tower and all the things one did with all of the tubes buzzing and hissing. And each of us has those kinds of stories to them. But telling a story in a static print is kind of like, that's where you get ink on the back of the picture.
Yeah.
But then, a picture in a post, okay, that starts to work. But all the different ways in which we do that, including what we're doing right here. I had a treat a few weeks ago of my very own cousins. I'm roughly the youngest of my first cousins on my mom's side, and we had a live stream. Our private podcast really does work, and just talking about what the neighborhood was like. What was it like growing up in the 1950s in the suburbs of Chicago? What it felt like, who the neighbors were, what they remember. I don't have any of that, and yet it's part of my family. And now we have an MP4 file.
And the other thing I think that's neat too, it's not for me right now, because I'm like really seriously, I'm working on 1999. So the memories are a little foggy, but that's for me, photos are always a trigger for memories. And one photo will trigger and not with the old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, or something. It's not really sometimes worth 1,000 words, but it triggers a bunch of memories of other things too.
Exactly.
Where if I sat down and I'm working on, my son gave me, I can't remember the name of it, one of the things where they send you prompts all the time. Storyworth, that's it.
Right.
They send you prompts all the time and ask you questions. And some of them trigger memory. Some of them I have to think about and I go, I don't even have a clue because there's nothing to trigger it. I need the prompt of a photo to me is way better than the prompt of what were you like when you were a kid? It's like, well, I don't know
Right.
what I was like. That would be a better question to ask a friend. So I'm finding that it's very helpful in remembering events and triggering me then to write a good story. So I do journaling on my scrapbooks have the journaling in them.
Yeah.
Sorry, here we go again.
Here we
So
go again.
it's exciting. I'm finding it very exciting and I can't wait to do it. And also it's way easier. I'm only trying to remember right now stories from 30 years ago. But if I start writing about things like when I did the Artemis one, last night I did Artemis. Maybe I'll send Barbara my pages just to have a look. But I don't have to I don't have to try and I don't have to do a ton of research. I don't have to rack my brain. I remember that I can write a story about it right now because it's still fresh in my memory. So it's in fact an easy way to if you're stuck on the old ancestor stories, just write a few of your stories of yourself, of what's happening. And one of the things that I think we talk about not having often is what was day-to-day life like?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I find. And I'm in years before I became a scrapbooker, and I think about 19, not probably right around where I'm working on now. And so the pictures are going to start to be way, way more pictures because when you start scrapbooking, you take more pictures. But it's it's easier to remember those things with the photo for me anyway. And I can easily go back and the memories that pops up, like that whole story I just told you from the photo of a plate of food from 6 years ago, right back there to remembering that. And so now it would be I'm going to get off, write that story down because it's easier to write our stories from now. And so I think that's what Lori and I are going to talk about in May. So, but coming up this week, we're going to talk with Kate about preservation. And we had a question about, and I don't know if somebody asked this question or it occurred to me at some point, but I have it in my notes. I wrote down, how do you prepare a collection that's going to be donated to a museum or an archives? So somebody probably asked that. I doubt that occurred to me on my own, but it came out in one of our many conversations we have in Kathy's Corner. And I think that's a great question to ask Kate because she also has worked in museums. I'm not going to try and remember which museums, but she's based in Rochester, New York. So she's worked in some fairly well-known.
Hear you, Bill.
Yeah, there's Bill. So I think we'll get some very good insights from Kate.
Yeah. One of the things that you've probably heard my diatribes on the subject of prompts. And I actually think a lot about that because prompts should be a very powerful way to trigger discussions of memories. And I think the reason I resent prompts is I don't like somebody telling me, interrupting what I am doing to tell me to do something else. That makes me crazy. But there is something really magical. What is a conceptual peg? What is a trigger? What is a bite of a Madeline, right? A multisensorial experience that brings back all of these other things is truly beautiful. And finding ways to really understand how that mechanism works, I think is brilliant. One of the things that you just said there in the context of being a good ancestor absolutely reminded me of that. And that was your point about how when you're doing scrapbooking about your children's childhood, you're suddenly taking more pictures. Why is that? Well, duh. Because you are thinking about that conceptual, how that will be perceived later. And to the question about how can I prepare my own materials to be useful in a museum collection, for example, it's thinking about context. And in fact, I would argue, just because I'm thinking about it right now, that maybe in the context of prompts and triggers, it's really all about context, right? It's this, here is a picture. What else do I need to know about it? Okay. The picture itself was the prompt to get you to talk about the context. And the trigger is all about bringing back the rest of the context that makes that trigger meaningful. It's the wraparound. It's to turn the one-dimensional thing into a three-dimensional experience. Um, and every kind of change has you thinking. Today, because we have these instant photographs at our hands, we're thinking about, oh, I'm building a new fence. I want to be able to remember what it used to be like because it's all going to be gone. I have a
Mhm.
big construction that's going to be happening next door, and I want to be able to remember what it was like before that
Like,
thing that I don't
mhm.
know what it's going to be is in front of me because it'll be there for the next 100 years. Each of these things, and honestly, going back into history, because of course, we dug up things in the holes for the posts for the fence that had, quartz in it. Why was quartz in the concrete? Um, you start saying, well, wait a minute, what was here before in this land right
Mhm.
here? So I was as one does, went back into the Sanborn maps to see, wait a minute, what was
What
here
was there?
before?
Yeah.
So all it
Oh.
says is dwelling unit in the wrong part of the property. I don't get that. But anyway, we'll figure that one out over time. And Lori Olson White chimes
Yep.
in here with, we
Great
do
point,
that
Lori.
same thing with our ancestral stories, right? Take the detail and wrap it in the appropriate context so it has meaning. And that's, again, back to that photo and giving it a three dimensionality, a smell, the wind in the air, the dryness, all of those kinds of things, which takes me back to thinking about, as we were talking about when we just got started. And, will the rains come? Will the rains trigger the weeds, which will trigger the fire danger, which will trigger the fire weather? We are in a really unique time, which from a advocacy standpoint is one thing with respect to climate change, but it also means
Mhm.
that whatever you believe, we are right here in this point in time, and things are changing all around us, which is kind of probably always
Mhm.
true. And how are we pushing that forward? Because those stories, that context is important for others to better understand themselves.
Mhm. Yeah. And telling and our stories right now. It's just, like and this whole thing, I think we mentioned at one point, our whole Projectkin, our Substack stories that everyone's written, that's another insight into what were we doing and
What were we thinking?
what were we thinking when this all started, and it's like we've collected a whole ton of stories from each other that may or may not you triggered with your mention of the construction, you triggered a memory, and I thought, "Oh, I was too busy because at the time that happened, my twins were 6 months old, so I wasn't really doing a lot of research, but we did our lot. We built in a brand new area.
Right.
When we did our lot, we dug up, like, 6 feet of wire fencing with 2 posts attached to it that was somehow, and it's like, where did that come from? What was here before? Because when we bought our lot,
Yeah.
this was like it was a brand new development, which another story too, because when we moved here, they wouldn't when I had my baby twins, no one would deliver food here because nobody had heard of our community. So it's like, they go, well, where is it? I said, it's like 5 minutes from the community across the highway. Was a big community. Everybody knew it. They deliver there, but oh no, we don't go there. So
Yeah.
all those stories that you don't think about, and it's all part of my kids growing up that, when you lived here, when we first lived here, there was nothing. Like this was, it's kind of disappointing now because it's all houses, but it was really, we were like on the edge of the city, and now there's like city
Yeah.
for miles. But
Yeah.
it's okay, leading into one place studies too is the
Yeah.
growth and
Yeah.
development, but it's in the here and now too. That, as I've said, I think um, for my descendants to find stories of what our life was like, I think will be incredible.
Yeah. So to me, a big aha moment this afternoon, y'all listening, um, is really this idea that what is a story that we're writing? Well, you've got this character development and this, all that stuff. Okay, that might be true for stories, and it does in a sort of a practical level of what makes it work, creates that feeling that you care, you get invested in the story, and all those kinds of things. It's device in that sense. But we're also talking about how, in talking about nonfiction, talking about the stories that are factual to the best of our ability,
Mhm.
of what our ancestors were doing or what we were doing, again, to the best of our ability. We are wrapping the events, the facts, with context that might explain the what. Grandma, what was happening here? Why were we
Mhm.
there? You know? Um, I'm doing this research on my own family and a migration story, and I'm trying to find out, like a journalist, who, what, when, or why, how. And yeah, that is I'm building up to a story that
Mhm.
will be interesting to read. But really, I'm kind of getting at the why. I love this. What were we thinking?
That could be a title of the session, I think. What were
I
we
think
thinking?
it is, which, as a matter of fact, here we are at 30-minute mark, and I do try to keep these tight and vigorous. And welcome, Jennifer. I'm sorry to be buttoning this up, but it is the media. And by the way, hello, we couldn't do this 5 years ago. We couldn't do this during the
Mhm.
pandemic. It was, other people could do it with other tools. We couldn't do it this way. And this way matters in the sense that it creates all kinds of dynamic things about the media that are different. And understanding that creates its own form of um, its own form of context for an event. I mentioned a family live stream. What? Yeah. And it created its own. It's like we know about storms, has its own weather. These media create their own environments that are different and subtle. What were we thinking? So yeah, I think
Mhm.
what were we thinking is our callback for the day. And looking at how in the terms of preservation in institutions versus preservation in a family. I'm really looking forward to your talk on Thursday,
Mhm.
with Kate Juka, is it?
Jackus.
So, Jackus, sorry.
Jackus?
Jackus?
Jackus, I think. Yeah.
Jacus, correct?
Yeah.
And you'll find that at projectkin.org/events. You can get to the Thursday's event and register, or stay tuned and watch it recorded at Kathy's Corner. So thank you so much, Kathy. This was fun. And thank you
It
all
was
for
fun. Thanks
joining.
so many people for joining us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good to see
We're
you.
like celebrities out there. We see you, we
Yeah.
know you, and appreciate your participation in the conversation in a slightly different form on Thursday. So thank
Yes.
you so
It'll
much
be
for
fun.
doing that. Yeah, thank
And
you.
Kathy has to go back to start scrapbooking again now.
I know.
I
Time of a
got
ticking.
more sessions today, so think about 5 more.
It's Roots Tech for scrapbookers.
It basically is, yes. So, but I'll put something in Kathy's coaching about it, I think, because it's for those
So
of you for the other closet scrapbookers out there.
I rather think that
Mhm.
Catsy's coaching has a whole little side hustle on digital scrapbooking. And I
Uh,
still maintain, I don't call it scrapbooking, but when you do that thing on like Canva whiteboards that to create
mhm.
interactive, accessible to anybody, don't need no stinking software to be able to view it.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
fine line. It's a fine line. Okay. Thank
All
you
righty.
all. We'll be talking more. Thank you so much. And by the way, if you see this now and there's no notes in it, it's just the default from Substack. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Give me an hour or two. I'll have it all updated with
It'll be
notes.
there.
It'll be there. Thank you. Bye bye now.
Bye bye.